Cooper Union Tuesday night for Amy Goodman's new book.
Yes, yes, it was beautiful, and I double happy because first things because my win of my freedom, and another question that beautiful moment about the Amy Goodman. He make that part about the book, and we see a lot of beautiful people. Especially you, when I meet you.
Yeah, it was so good to see you after all these years. I didn't even know, but it was so great. And welcome. Welcome to Conversations. A pleasure to welcome to the program two gentlemen. They're going to be talking about a specific case of my friend Farouk, who has just now, two days from now, back, been able to be released from prison through the good offices and hard work of the Center for Constitutional Rights. And we have Mr. Farouk, and we have his lawyer, and I'd like to introduce him, and then we'll get into a conversation about the specifics of your situation. And congratulations on breathing free air after nearly 2 years in prison. The report was just recently in the newspaper. But let me introduce the guest first. And if I may, on my far left is Shana Kadida, that's right. And he's an attorney with the Center for Constitutional Rights, and he's been involved in Farouk's case. And Shana, welcome very, very much to Conversation.
Thanks for having me.
I'm glad you could come in to help make this, straighten this out, the situation. And on my immediate left is Farouk Abdel-Muhti, and he's the person of the hour, as it were. And I want to just show at the outset of this, maybe you can come in on this camera and show. This was a piece that appeared recently. It was in Wednesday, actually. This is now Thursday, yesterday's New York Times. And it was an article that appeared with a very handsome picture of Farouk. And it says, stateless man avoids deportation from the United States. And it says, Farouk Abdel-Muhti, a Palestinians' right advocate and radio host show, was released from jail on Monday, the day before. And congratulations on your newfound freedom.
Brother and friend.
We were just saying we met again at the Cooper Union. They had this big celebration for Amy Goodman's new book that she and David Goodman have launched.
Yes.
And you were there. And when they announced that you were there in the audience, the whole auditorium broke out in wild applause for 5 minutes. I think they were applauding that you had gotten out of prison, and we're going to want to talk about the specifics of that with your lawyer and the situation, because it's a major story. There have been other reports about it on the wires and so forth. But I wonder, maybe you could share. We have a whole hour, right, Farouk? And maybe you could share your own background, where you were born and raised, that sort of thing.
Sure.
And then we'll get into some of the specifics of the case. But let's talk about Farouk for a while. Where were you born and raised? What's your background?
Well, my background, I'm Palestinian. I born in a village. It's called. Its name is Jania.
It's near Ramallah.
It's between Ramla and Ramallah. It's more close to the city of Ramallah. Our village, is very rich in olive trees and figs, and our heredity, we live there for many centuries. Our families live there. I come from a family. Some of the big families in the area, we use the name Abu Fkheda. For that, you see in my email, I use the Abu Fkheda.
Yeah, I couldn't figure out why, but there it is. There you are. I see. Yeah.
But traditional, I don't like to use my last name. I use just my grandfather's last name, Muhti, Abdel-Muhti. But in general, the family is called Abu Fkheda, and we are in different villages and in the city of Ramallah and in Jerusalem and in other places there. And
you were born what year now then?
I born in 1947.
Just before the state of Israel was declared.
Yes, also before the Israel declared. It was exactly in the year what the United Nations League accepted to the creation and resolution of the two-state solutions, of the 181. According to the United Nations, the right of the historical land of Palestine to create two states, one state of Palestine and another state of Israel, and resolve the problem. Yes, it's just 1 year before what happened, the creation of Israel created, and after Palestine is stay in the limbo. Yes, and in the area for sure. We come to be annexed to Jordan, yes, in the 50s, you know, and it was very difficult to the Palestinian implement himself Jordanian with his Palestinians, you know. And the other side, the United Nations tried to implement the right of the Palestinians and to get some agreement back to the Palestinian to the one who lost his lands and the historical land of Palestine in 1948. And in that moment, Count Bernadotte, if you read about it, he came to the Holy Land and tried to resolve the problem. And he came to be a victim of the assassination. Yes, it was terrible. And the voice of progressive Israelis can't talk because the gang of the right wings take over in the state of Israel. And the Palestinian to the other side is coming to be in the condition was the one in resolution of that by the point of guns is 2/3 of the population is be expelled to the other countries, what is hosting today in Lebanon and Syria and Jordan and other places. Yes, this was very sad. To this moment is sad in one question, but the situation, we believe in anything, peace is going to come sooner or later.
You think it will come sooner or later?
Yes.
And,
yes.
Okay, and you were raised amid that, so you were young in that. And when did you come to America? And you've been involved with WBAI. We got you down as a radio host also. You've had a program on WBAI.
Yes.
But I don't want to jump too far or too fast ahead. But when did you come and take up, activity here in the United States? And
when I come in very young in the United States, first time in the 1960s, and when I come in here, like you understand, we have big problem. The majority of our documents supposed to be Jordanian if we live in the West Bank, and if we live in the refugee camps in Lebanon, supposed to be Lebanese repasse de passe or license passers. Or was difficult to any country give opportunity to the Palestinian immigrants to go work. The only countries give opportunity is Brazil because we peasants. Yes, other countries very, very difficult. And I have family was in Central America, and I immigrate to Central America, and there we fixed a document to come into United States because in that time we can mobilize ourselves in different places and to come to the United States. If you use any document for Latin America or to other countries, it's no problem. It's not seem like a crime.
What was your status? Was he? Maybe you can pipe in. Was he a Palestinian? Sure. Was he stateless? What was the situation?
He was born in 1947, and at that time Ramallah was part of the mandate. But by 1948, Jordan had actually taken control of it. So there are some West Bank Palestinians who are not stateless. They might actually have a claim to Jordanian citizenship, and for a long time, actually, most West Bank Palestinians did have some sort of claim. But what happened in 1988 was King Hussein renounced, but he renounced territorial claims to the West Bank in order to lay the groundwork for that area to eventually become a Palestinian state.
And what year is that now?
1988, the middle of 88.
Okay,
and so what happened then is all those West Bank Palestinians lost any claim to Jordanian citizenship they might have. Now Farouk left Palestine for good. He never was a resident there again after about 1960, which is when he came to live with his uncle, I believe, in Honduras.
Just a youngster still.
Very young, 13 years old.
13
and I think what he's telling you about the inability to work in any other country for Palestinians really hits home when you realize how young he was when he was forced to
He was almost like,
he's not, exile.
Is he like a man without a country, stateless? What is
he
the
is,
situation?
He is purely stateless. I mean, most Palestinians basically don't have citizenship in a country, but they may have at least a residence claim to be able to get back to Palestine and live there. His issue in his case was basically that he couldn't even get travel documents to go back to Palestine, and the reason for that was essentially that he couldn't get what is called an Israeli ID number.
Israeli ID number for people that had been in the West Bank?
Right. This is for people who, for Palestinians who lived in the occupied territories after the Israelis took over.
67?
67,
in
right.
67.
And he left, of course, in 1960 and was never resident there again.
Right, okay.
So, you know, if you live there after 1967, the Israelis will have their own records of your residence there, and since they're willing to trust those records, you can eventually get a travel document to return to the West Bank.
Through the Israelis?
Through the Israelis, or possibly through the Palestinian National Authority, which can issue its own documents, even on its own records for people who were there after the Oslo Accords in 1993. And then in some circumstances, the Jordanians have issued short-term transit visas to go through Jordan, cross over the Allenby Bridge, and get into the West Bank that way.
Really? Really a mulligan stew of all kinds of possibilities. It's the problem of the people that are stateless, or people that have been denied the access to their homeland in a traditional... Where did he live? Where in Central America did you go?
My uncle was living in Honduras, and after
Honduras,
that, yes, and he was the majority of the Palestinians who live in Honduras got documents from there, and they leave and come to the United States and go in and up. And I decided to come to the United States.
Now, you, is he a Honduran citizen?
Well, as far as I know, he didn't have any claim to Honduran status. He wasn't allowed to live there or work there. And actually, it was in very short order that he came to the U.S. the first time on a tourist visa in 1963.
You mean, he's 15 or 16 or something?
16.
16
so for 3 years he's in Honduras, and then he comes to America on a tourist visa, right?
Yes.
And, you know, he was, you can look in his immigration record, which the government has, and, you know, you'll see that he was very quickly, you know, sort of caught working here, deported, came back again, you know, at age 17. He was deported to Honduras? Deported, back to Honduras, I believe, or possibly they might have let you off in Mexico. But it's not really that relevant. I mean, he came back again and went back again as a teenager, was deported. And then at some point in the 70s came here for good.
It's really hard for... somebody without a country to have no place to put their roots, or how do they do it? It's really a displaced people kind of thing that is a sad story.
Yes, it's a sad story, you know, and it's not that for me, for many Palestinians. Some of the big Palestinian writer is named Ghassan Kanafani. He's write a book what is translated from Arabic to English. I'm going to find it and give to you. And
okay, good,
he talked about the Palestinian when he was going to Kuwait. He's going to go inside the tankers, the tank of the oil tank inside. And many of them, one talk about the history of one, he's died for the sun in the middle, when between the duty, between Iraq and the Kuwaiti...
The train stopped or something?
You know, stopped him to check up, to go to there. And the officer there the guardian was sleeping, he's not put attention, and the guy died, and his life was a misery because he was selling his properties, selling his rights, to looking for a new life, and that's give you the historical about the Palestinians, that is looking for the way to live, looking to the way to develop himself, and this is what happened. For example, the Palestinian in Gaza, it's difficult even to have even citizens. To go.
Because you're in diaspora.
Yes, in diaspora, yes. And in Lebanon, to this moment, you can see the question of the Palestinian in Lebanon is don't have even to have double problem, because some of them don't have even the right to get a citizen to be used like a worker in the Lebanese territory, and the other side. The Lebanese don't give him 78 kind of jobs. He can't even the Palestinian use it.
Catch-22, right?
Yes.
It's catch-22s all over the place for you, as if it wasn't tough enough,
Yes, it's a very, very difficult situation and critical. The same thing the Palestinians in Iraq today, what is...
Palestinians in Iraq.
In Iraq,
right.
Yes, an example, after the question of Saddam and coming the occupation of by the side of the military forces of United States, the Palestinian in Iraq is appealed to the United Nations to have help from the UNRWA to get help because to survive. And accidentally, who knows who's put explosive and destroyed the UN
commission over there a couple months ago. Yeah.
Yes, and this is very negative. This gives you the ideas how the Palestinian be sacrificed. Jesus was sacrificed for 2 days. I don't know how much for 2 or 3 days. Yeah, but if all the Palestinians have more than 55 years sacrificial. And this question, my legal representative, Brother Shane, is talk, is truth, that if you begin into the history, that in 1988, Jordan not going to give us back, and after that decided the King Jordan to give back the Palestinian. We beginning to be in the limbo because the occupation coming here, even still there, and Israel is not even give to the Palestinian living in the occupation even citizens or rights, only given the passe to go, and if you go, it's one-way track. You go, you can't be coming back, and how about myself? When in the 1960s, I coming outside from the historical land of Palestine, this is more difficult situation. Even if I appeal to Mr. Arafat, I wanted going back. This is very difficult because the Israelis control the borders.
They control everything.
I control everything. It's not going to leave you. And any time I have problem, threat me with the Israeli Mossad, because that's the idea is from the administration of the government of the United States.
From their perspective, Israel probably feels besieged by an Arabic world that is got animosity directed toward them. They feel that sort of thing, and it's been the Palestinian people have suffered terribly under this. But I wonder if we could pick up from in your maybe you could pick up on his running commentary because he was in and out of Honduras, he was here, and then he was in the United States, and he's been all the time not quiescent. He has been, if I'm not mistaken, as I remember, because we know each other from Harriet Karchner
and from the Russian book,
and from the UN and from the Rus and everything from before and so forth. You and I know each other, but he's been politically active, and he's been a voice of. It was in the paper. He's a Palestinian rights advocate. So he's been a voice that has not been quiescent or quiet. He's had a political voice, and has that added increased grief to his situation, or what's the story? Maybe you can fill us in.
He's, as I said, since the 1970s he's been living here, but he has never had, lawful sort of immigrant status. The whole time he has been deportable in theory, deportable in law.
Are there a lot of people like that in the United States?
There are about 8 million plus.
8 million plus total?
People colloquially refer to as illegal immigrants. Or
all right, and that would include Mexican, other things?
Everything across the gamut.
About 8 million total.
8 million, and maybe 500,000 in the New York metro area alone.
500,000 here. Okay, and he was one of them then.
Sure, and most of them have a low profile.
And speaking out politically.
Right. I mean, I think out of those 8 million, you won't find too many who are going to protests and going on the radio and that sort of thing. But Farouk was
because they might be trying to hide out or something.
Sure,
right?
And yet he was never hiding. And part of the reason for that was the government had never been successful in removing him before. He had been in immigration proceedings in the mid-'70s, in the early '80s, in the mid-'90s, and it was always the same story. He couldn't get back to Israel.
It was always the same story. Please, what was the story?
Sure.
Why
well,
couldn't
they fundamentally they couldn't remove him. The Israelis wouldn't take him in the mid-'70s because they didn't find his name in their population registry.
Man without a country, huh?
Right, and beyond just being a Palestinian, a man who left before the Israelis took over. Right.
And does that matter before the Israelis? Is that he was born in '47, 1 year before the state was? Does that make a difference in the law?
It's not the fact that he was born before Israel was created. It's the fact that he left before the Israelis took over the area.
I see.
Because the Israelis will only rely basically on their own records, essentially. You've got to be in this population registry. So, for instance, Farouk's parents, who stayed behind, have Israeli ID numbers because they lived there after the Israelis took over.
They live there now?
Yes.
Well, they've passed away.
Yes,
I'm sorry.
But my family, my sister, still live there, and my properties, my house, all is there. I was laughing because like Shane was speaking in 1995 or 96, the immigration called to my lawyer at that time to go to present myself. And that day I was feeling not like headache, and Harriet Kashmir tell me, Farouk.
Harriet Kashmir.
Yes, Kashmir, yes.
Our dear friend.
Yes. Farouk, why you don't go a good hospital close to my house? His name City Bellevue Hospital.
Bellevue.
Yes, Bellevue.
Yeah, Bellevue, yeah.
Yes. And I remember I go with her and I talk to my lawyer. My lawyer, he make appointment with the immigration to go next week. When I was with my lawyer next week, you know, in the same year, we come in there. The immigration looked at the people and say, okay, we don't have no problem, just go out, you know, in that year. And from that moment, it's never bothered me. And
I don't understand. Do you? I don't understand quite what he's getting at.
He missed some sort of
a doctor's
time to appear before the immigration judge or the agency because of illness.
No, I wasn't the illness, but I coming back the next week, and I come in there and I see the immigration, and I put my papers, and the immigration say, okay, necessary, come the next year, and it's no problem.
Is this the procedure? They come yearly or check with him? See, I'm not familiar with this. How they treat these people? They would have been on their docket or something, his case, but they would say he doesn't have a country, or was he in an unusual situation?
Well, it's unclear that he could have been removed even if they had gotten to that point. But in any event, the upshot of the early 90s proceedings was that he had a standing deportation order, but that they hadn't sort of gone after him and tried to find him to remove him. And they probably wouldn't have been able to do that. Anyway.
Did I hear you say there was something like 8 million in the United States?
There are 8 million. That's an estimate of undocumented
and how many of them would have a standing deportation document in their name, do you think?
That I couldn't tell you, but I'm sure it's in the tens of thousands.
Tens of thousands as against 8 million. And so, and is there any particular pattern to those that the Immigration Service or the system, the American system, targets as far as people that they put attention to?
There wasn't very much targeting.
Does it have anything to do with people who are politically active or anything political?
We can certainly say that in his case because it's obvious.
That's what
he had this standing deportation order from the early 90s. Nothing had ever been done on it. He wasn't
he's
in
talking
hiding.
out on the radio.
Right. He was talking out, in public.
I know.
All the activists in the area knew him. But what happened in around the time of the Second Intifada in March 2002, he started arranging for radio interviews on WBAI.
He went on WBAI, that morning show or something. He had the morning show, or what was the show that you had on BAI? Wake up, 6 o'clock or something?
6:30.
And you were arranging interviews with people in the West Bank
and so forth?
To present the Palestinian views.
Yeah. It's not just the Palestinian. It includes some Israelis, progressive, from the left.
Progressive,
yes. Yeah. Was in the Knesset before. And some lady, I forget, from some organization from the left, she was in Australia. She had the cellular, and I called her, and she was in the line, you know that?
All the way to Australia?
Yes.
It's amazing what you can do now.
And in the time was siege, Azmi Bishara was a prominent Palestinian Israeli, lived there, and, Mr. Bishara. And I called him, and he got speak in the situation, and it's like this. We have to talk about the Palestinian community in the diaspora, speakers from Palestinian in Lebanon, from Syria, and include the next day, if I don't get up, Abu Rashid from Baghdad is going to be in the line to talk about the situation. And in the United Nations, Qudwa, the son of the sister of Mr. Arafat, the chairman Arafat, he was in the line. We put him in the line, with really we don't take any directions to deal the situation in the point of view of a political decision. We talk in the congregational issues of the Palestinian in general, and in the same time try to be Israelis from the left, include the heads of Rakah party and others. The one is died about just 6 months ago.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yes, I don't remember his name, Meyer, and others. And we talk about the question of Jenin when the Israeli massacres the question of Jenin by the order of Sharon, and undercover by the United States policies. You have to talk about the situation. It's a critical situation, and we are beginning to talk with the major or the of Jenin, because the only person who can talk about it, and he live in the refugee camps there, and he see day by day what has happened there, and the Federation of the Women's. And on the other side, you have the grassroots of the Palestinian conditions. What is the Intifada, you know, is nothing wrong, because we talk about liberation and against the occupation. And was in the radio and talk about the truth and talk about oppose this kind of calamity and destruction.
The big calamity, or the big disaster.
Yes.
I think they refer to that 1948 as the big disaster.
Well, from the 1948,
establishment
they call him in Arabic al-Naqba.
What does that mean?
Al-Naqba, the catastrophe.
Catastrophe, right?
Yes, the catastrophe was terrible, because 2/3 of the Palestinians lose his homes, properties, his land by the gunpoints take to his lands. And today, the United Nations, by the way, is support. He make a resolution about the question of to go back to Palestine, and supposed in the 1950 everybody go back. You mentioned before, Con Bernadotte was working for it.
Yeah, you mean, is that the right to return? You mean?
The right of return.
Yeah, they just nullified that yesterday. Mr. Bush on the television with Mr. Sharon said that they just didn't bother conferring with the Palestinians at all, announced the pull out from Gaza and so forth.
Yes, we have big problem, because when you deal with Mr. Sharon and deal with Mr. Bush, it is a very difficult situation, because we deal with fundamentalist elements. You
fundamentalist
know,
mentality.
Yes, mentality. You know, fundamentalists can be Muslim fundamentalist. Can
Osama
be
bin Laden. He is a fundamentalist.
Fundamentalist.
Yeah,
you have the Sharon is a fundamentalist.
He's a fundamentalist what?
A fundamentalist, Zionist fundamentalist.
Zionist fundamentalist.
Yes, fundamentalist.
Then we have Christian fundamentalists now that are big support for Mr. Sharon here in the United States.
Religious people like Jewish people like Natura Carta and other people. This is a religious people. You have Christian people as religious people. Muslim people is Muslim religious people.
It's really odd, because but it's really odd, isn't it? Because you and I knew Harriet Karchner was a lovely lady. She had red hair, little and everything. She was real good. And she used to be a very close associate and a real close assistant. I think it was a Rabbi Teitelman or Tanema, but it was the Natura Carta.
Yes.
And those are the Orthodox Jewish people who are against the whole idea of the establishment of the State of Israel based upon the Torah, which says that it is not right for there to be the establishment at the end time of an Israeli state or until or unless the Messiah was leading them into that. And they take that traditional position, which was a position of a great deal of Jewish belief until relatively recently.
Exactly. You know, this example you mentioned about Harriet and Natura Carta is really give the implementation about the situation in Middle East. Is not really the situation of ethnic or religious question. Is the question here of occupation and the mythology of the fundamentalistic ideas. What is created in the United States. Remember that in the time of the Puritans, after the British come to this country, the Puritans the Puritans take the hills here, kill the indigenous people, bring the African people to this country in slavery, 40 millions, and beginning to re-educate himself. We call him in Arabic ijtihad. They re-educate himself in the Bible and interpret the Bible according to himself. In the end, he find himself too much fundamentalism in the head to say, well, we are the chosen people of this land, and we're looking for the chosen people in Palestine, because the Bible indicated here, and beginning to give this idea and they export these ideas to Europe, and in the Jewish community was acceptable, because the Jewish community and the Muslim community and the Arab was victim in the Inquisition in the 1500 in Spain. And it was millions of people died.
The Spanish Inquisition was directed to Jews as well as non-Catholics, and the Moors.
And the Moors. And after that, it was very acceptable, but the mentality of romances, European mentality of Babel, I think so, in the 1912, the Hitler Nazism and fascism, beginning some of these people absorb the ideas of Nazism, of nationalism, by injected with the Puritans' ideas of the mythology of the neo-Christians in the United States, what they're thinking, when create the neo-religious, different than the other Christianities. It's like we talk about the Islam too, these fundamentalistic Muslims, it's like the Zionists too, that is very familiar. And George Bush is not nothing new, when he said yesterday, we're going to let the settlers be in there and the right of return is not necessary. What is not new, because what happened here is a fundamentalist, the person who lives in mythological ways.
Yeah.
When we talk about, like you talked before, or we talk, or Shane talk, and the majority of the people listen to us, we try to resolve the question geopolitical, like the question in myself. We talk to resolve my situation, and not in the issues of mythological meaning, but we're talking in the factors issues
well, these things get mixed up. The historical narrative of all the nations, each has their own story. The Jewish people, many people feel very strongly the Temple of David from 2,000 years, from 1,000. They have a strong sense of association with that. They have their own stories and that sort of thing. Everybody has it. So it becomes very mixed up, and unfortunately, in these clashes between national or even ethnic or tribal narratives that people use to build political entities and build interests and new facts on the ground, as Mr. Sharon will say, or Mr. Bush will say, to build new facts. So it is human beings are caught in the midst of this, and very often there's a great deal of difficulty delivered down on innocent human beings for the machinations of these various national entities. But I wonder, maybe we could bring it back. Maybe you could chirp in here if you would, because in his particular case, he was advocating for the Palestinian cause, for that sort of thing. In the midst of this situation he was in, where he was what was the term that they used for aliens that they have a look at him? I mean, he was deportable.
Stateless, but undeportable.
And he's still speaking out politically and so forth.
Sure.
And let's bring it up to date, because he was, after
So right, we're
9/11 and so forth, there was all of a sudden a sort of massive dragnet put out against Middle Eastern, Arab, Muslim people, and there's been a lot of people caught up in that. Supposedly, Mr. Ashcroft, the Patriot Act, some of the not paying careful attention to some of the civil liberties traditionally granted to people here and so forth. And some people have said running roughshod. Some people say there are detainees in Guantanamo that are being held without indictment, without access to a lawyer, that sort of thing. Was he caught up in that, or what was the situation more recently that he was in prison 2 years for? And what were the conditions under which
he had access to the outside world for the most part. So, to some extent it's different from that first wave of people, in the month or two after 9/11, who were, taken off court dockets in immigration court.
It was pretty bad,
right? Were kept isolated, yes. Terrible.
From the standpoint of the Center for Constitutional Rights.
I mean, the Center for Constitutional Rights has a lawsuit going on behalf of those people in that first wave of detentions, almost all of them Muslim men from, of South Asian or Arab extraction. In a lot of cases, those people went through the deportation proceedings in the next couple months after 9/11, were given deportation orders, and were held for 3 or 4 months in prison, ostensibly on immigration charges, but in reality so that the FBI could do criminal background checks and do criminal investigations on them.
It was a big dragnet kind of thing,
And that was starting to wind down in terms of those people, eventually being deported when Farouk was brought in. But
now, what was he brought in for? What were the circumstances under which he was, as you put it, brought in? I mean,
Well,
how did his life change? What were the circumstances?
Right. I mean, the main thing is that he started appearing on WBAI, and
he
was
so
not just arranging
not only
these.
He's vulnerable, as it were, in the eyes of the immigration, and instead of going
the whole
quiet,
time
he comes on the radio and he's talking about the Palestinian situation, the Iraq situation.
Well, he was doing, I believe, on-air translations of some of these interviews, which he was arranging. So beyond just the fact that he was, showing up at WBAI to help do work there, he was also, his voice was on the radio.
Yeah, and Bernard White was there then, the program director, and they were happy to put this on because it's part of a progressive, and you had enough nerve and courage, as it were, in order to come out and voice truths as you saw it. Is this part of the thing to put him in a vulnerable situation?
I think it's almost certain that was what triggered it, because a month later is when he was picked up. That's April 26, 2002.
A month after he went on the radio?
Pretty much a month after he started doing that.
So you're one of the WBAI truth-telling victims of the system, huh?
Yes. Other question, from before, even Samori Maximilian, what is the head of the...
Samori,
yes.
Mm-hmm.
He was my friend, you know, and all the time when he needs something of Middle East, he's talked to me, and I was in the radio for many times, or contacted the question, because always you have to talk de facto and the truth, you know, that you have three kind of agendas in the question of the Middle East. One is talk with the mythological meaning. The other one is too soft and to seduce already to the Western agenda. And you have the third point, was to talk and analyze the situation according to the geopolitical solutions. And I am in the third point.
Geopolitical solutions with a patina, or with an understanding of things from an Arabic or a Palestinian perspective?
And an international Palestinian, Arab, and international perspective.
We don't get much of that in the news, do we?
Yes.
In the normal news.
Yes.
No,
An example, this analysis is coming to be from the acknowledged opinion from inside the Israelis, inside the Palestinian agenda, from inside the international agenda, and you have to talk the truth.
The truth as you see it.
Yes.
People see truths differently, right?
Yes.
And you can recognize that people are seeing something. The movie Rashomon, do you know Rashomon?
Yes.
The Kurosawa, where the people see an event and they see it completely different, and they believe, if they took a polygraph test, they would say that color is red, and the other one would say it's blue, and they would believe it, really believe it. But these things clash, right?
Exactly.
That's part of the problem in the world, right? Different narratives held strongly to by the contending parties. That's where the law, I guess, does come in. But
yes. Well, the situation and circumstances come in, and after that. Before and that, you know, these television channels, you know, beginning to interview me or call me and interview me about any question.
American channels? CNN?
Yes. No, at that time it was CNN, it was Channel 9 and Channel 7.
Local channel.
Yes, in
local
that time.
channels.
We talk about for the years by the years. And after begin to the CNN after the 9/11 to try to see my opinion.
Did they ever talk Al Jazeera? We have Al Jazeera now.
Well,
we have Arabic television. We have Mosaic television.
I speak with Mrs. Talhami, where she was the head of Ghada Talhami, which is the head of the Al Jazeera and the United Nations. I speak with her. She called me, and I have my interview with her.
And you have an interview on Al Jazeera?
Yes, interview with her, and many in the time after 9/11. No, before 9/11.
Before, yeah.
Yes, before 9/11, and after she moved from here in that moment. But in the same time, the other Arab channels, like Lebanese channels and other channels, too, asked me here. And when it's coming after happening 9/11, I am the one person meet and bring I talk to Rabbi Weiss to be participate, and I
Rabbi Weiss in Natura Carta. Yeah, right. Yeah.
And
he's a young man, relative, 45.
Weiss is person is old man with the beard.
Also,
you talk about Haim, the young man.
Oh, Haim Weissman. No, not Weiss. No,
Haim, I don't remember his last name.
I knew his mother.
Yes,
she was
died,
really.
right?
Yeah.
Yes. After that, I called the Imam Ahmed Widar, is an Egyptian, a lawyer, and after is coming to be from Al Azhar, and is the head of the masjid and Uthman ibn Affan in 54, 55 Street, to participate. I called the Christian Arab Khadr al-Yatim to participate and go in a big protest against the war, against terrorism.
Right.
And in the end, how I can, against terrorism, we are condemned. This thing was happened here in 9/11. It's very sad for us because, you know, this is completely, you know, and after that, Bin Laden jumping to say, I am liberate Palestine. This is not like Mrs. Al-Ashrawi say, you know, everybody jumping in the baker of the Palestinian, and these men never care about Palestine. He was recruiting people to go fight in Afghanistan.
Right, that's right.
And
the
fundamental
or Saudi Arabia. He was in Saudi Arabia. He was directing the Muslim Brotherhood.
Yes, exactly. And it's not our production. And after all these things. When opposing the war and all these things, the situation is still the American policies it's like today the George Bush policies. That you can see.
Yeah, it just gets that. Yeah, it's that way because there's a I don't know what is it, 1.2 billion Muslims in the world, and people have a tendency to just see everybody all the same.
Yes.
You know, that's one of the problems. That's one of the big problems. Yes. But I wonder if we could pick up. So he's in this. He's staying political. He's obviously political, a lot of things. And then what happened 2 years ago, or nearly 2 years ago, that he was taken into custody? Can you spell it out for us, what actually happened?
Sure. Well, nothing changed with his status. He was always, deportable in the sense that he didn't have lawful status to stay in the United States. The problem was that whenever the United States had him in immigration custody, they could never manage to get another country to take him because there is no country, obviously, in the West Bank for Palestinians to be citizens of. And so then the real question is, can you get travel documents from any of the people who have authority over that territory? And as I said before, you can't really get them from Israel, you can't get them from Jordan, you can't get them from the Palestinian National Authority without one of these Israeli ID numbers.
Well, any authority the Palestinian Authority had seems to have been pretty well undercut, hasn't it?
Sure,
I mean, you got tanks all around it's just a complete lockdown. It seems. I don't know well.
So even the conditions on the ground.
So he couldn't get that. So what happened?
Well, so they had him in custody, but they couldn't remove him. They already had a deportation order from the previous immigration court.
He was picked up on that?
He was picked up on that order, and he was picked up by the Absconder Task Force, which is a joint federal-state group that was put together to pick up basically Muslim men who were here illegally.
Wait a minute. That were here illegally. They picked up a lot of those, did they not?
Sure.
They put them in prison. Did they not sometimes do that in a way where they were even denied access to lawyers and so forth?
Sure, but that wasn't the case with Farouk.
Not
Farouk had a lawyer from the first day.
He did,
was in contact, although they did shuffle him around a lot during the 2 years.
And so he was picked up, and he was picked up on this deportation
standing deportation order. Right?
And he's been in prison for 2 years. And what's been your situation in prison? What's been from a legal perspective? What's been the situation that he's been submitted to?
The legal issue in the case here was that the government couldn't effectuate his removal. They couldn't
effectuate his removal from this country.
They couldn't enforce that deportation order because no other country would take him.
No other country would take you.
So the law. I know. So he's still in a paradoxical legal situation. As he sits here, he doesn't have lawful status in the U.S., but nobody else will take him either.
Nobody would take him, so then they said, well,
that's
we'll
what the
keep
judge
him
said,
in prison.
A man without a country.
A man without the country.
So the legal question is, how long can you hold someone in prison if they are deportable, i.e. they don't have legal status in the United States, but the government can't, as a practical matter, remove them from the U.S.?
Does that apply to many Palestinians, for instance?
Sure. Palestinians, I think, are probably the largest category of these
of all those.
Aliens,
are there others that are in that category?
Oh, certainly. I mean, the leading case that went up to the Supreme Court in 2001, Zedvitas versus Davis, involved this man, Zedvitas, who was a Lithuanian by ethnicity, but he was born to his parents when they were in a displaced persons camp after World War II in Germany. And as you know, Germany doesn't have birth citizenship. If you're born in the United States, you're automatically a citizen. That's an Anglo-American sort of innovation that spreads from England throughout the world. Right. Most places have blood citizenship.
What does that mean?
If your parents are citizens, you get citizenship that's derivative from
whether
them.
You're born there or not?
Right.
So your parents are living, if your parents leave Spain and they go live in the United States and you're then a Spanish citizen?
The odds are pretty good that you would have a claim to Spanish citizenship.
As well as United States citizenship?
Well, then the question is, can you have dual citizenship? And
can some people have dual citizenship? Is it an arrangement between countries, or how is that allowed?
It varies. It varies, and a lot of times it varies based on a military service obligation, so that sometimes women can have joint citizenship and men can't, in the same circumstances. But what's relevant, here is that there are a lot of people who, while they're born in a particular place in the world, they don't have citizenship there. Farouk was born in the West Bank, but there's no country there. Zedvitas was born in Germany. His parents didn't have a country that they had come from because Lithuania vanished after, the Soviet Union sort of at the end of World War II. And, so there are a lot of people in various situations who are like this. They can't be removed. And then there are some people who have citizenship, but there's some reason that their country will not issue them documents. Okay, bear with me here in terms of this longer thing, because we're looking at diaspora. We use the word, you're in diaspora, you don't have a country. Now, the Jewish people, as an ethnic group and a religious group, were in diaspora for 2,000 years or so, and all that time they were living in a situation similar to this in the sense of their ethnic identity. But his identity as a Palestinian was a political identity. It wasn't an ethnic identity, or I think you might say it's an ethnic identity, not a political identity, right?
Really?
But there's no political entity there that represents him, that gives him citizenship,
Exactly.
right? Jews from all over the world can return to Israel and get Israeli citizenship.
But they couldn't for
right?
2,000 years.
Sure.
So they were living in diaspora at the behest of, and he's in a situation they were without a country in the sense of their ethnic identity, and that's probably a lot of what's behind the Jewish national longing for a state of Israel of their own after 2,000 years, right? We recognize that. But they picked him up, and you were in prison for two years?
Well, I be honest with you, I be threat from the beginning, terrible, and example, come to the house when I leave, with the despot, the first time it's coming in a despot way, and I not was there in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, tried to break the door down, and my son opened the door. Was the other neighbors he lived with us there was opened the door and jumping the 3 officers over him, and we need where's Farouk looking for me, we have to see him and jump over the beds looking for...
These are police?
Task force.
Task force?
So it was the absconder task force. It was a joint federal
officers
local.
of FBI?
I believe there was one INS person, maybe? Was there an FBI?
These are police officers, like with guns and things and everything?
Yeah. And after that, jumping toward the bed, looking in the books, looking to the computer, and after include my son, tell him, you are you don't have the right to come, and you have to have permit, and he's don't listen. And the other person was older than me. Is very upset. Some of the officers say, "You shut your mouth, and I want to jump you. We want to throw you from the window, 14th floor."
Oh, they say this?
Yeah.
This is a little bit, I don't know, it may be getting there, but this is, one remembers early in Germany in the 1930s, they had stormtroopers and bully boys coming, and in that case, they were attacking Jews.
Yes.
Now, in a sense, is it too far of a stretch to say they're now attacking Muslims in a way similar? Not like what was to develop, but similar in that way, do you think? Or it's not for you to say, but, is it getting... Is that too far of a stretch in terms of
when you say that there
tactics?
are tens of thousands of people out there who have standing deportation orders, and that's another way of saying that there isn't that much in the way of enforcement resources internal to the U.S. The INS has most of its people on the borders. They don't have that many people running around trying to get people who already have deportation orders.
Yeah, they have
but
a hard
the efforts
time
are
maintaining
being
those borders.
focused on Muslim men from South Asian and Arab extraction.
As in Germany they did with Jews.
Well, that's a whole different sort of level, I suppose. But
it developed into, but things develop from a beginning, and one does not want the thing to get worse before it gets better, if you understand legally.
Well, after that, my lawyer we put him in the radio, because I was in the radio and the news put him in the report about the situation. And after my lawyer speak with some of the FBI, his name, I think last name was Clark, and he say, okay, we don't need nothing for Mr. Farouk, but after 3 weeks we'd like to meet him. And my lawyer says, okay, no problem. After 2 weeks, my lawyer called to his cellular phone to the officer, and the officer says, not yet. In the first week of May, we're going to meet together. And in 26th of April, I was 4 o'clock in the morning. Somebody tried to break the door, and there was three officers, the task force,
guns?
And in the back, 18 guards, police, with blue uniform,
with guns and
with
sticks.
Guns, with no guns or sticks. Sticks is all right. It's guns, guns. And after that, open. If you don't
Scary.
open, yes.
Your family's there?
No, but me and my son and
your son was there.
And the other the other old person lived there with us, and it's very. It's really terrible, that.
Particularly given the tenor in the country at the time.
He say, You have arms. You have, this is
bombs. Do you have
bombs? No, say another words. Yeah, you have arms, and you are terrorists.
Yeah, you are terrorists.
Yes,
because that's a term that's being used around very easily.
If you don't open the door, we're going to break it. And really, already talked to the officer coming in. We're going to break he got something to break the door. That
really
put the door down. After I speak with the lawyer by the cellular, and the lawyer say open it. When he's opened it, the two officers come in first, and the other officer take the other guy stay outside to the guards don't come in. And after jumping over me, give me.
They put you on the ground?
Yes, put me on the ground. Yes, and give me your document, and right away, I was taking a shower, when it's coming, and I have just I don't
shorts
take the pajama, and I don't have nothing over me. He tell me put the pants was some old pants, and the short of my son is more tight, and he put me by force.
The ones you put in your son's trousers?
Yeah, my son.
And he's thinner than you.
Yes, and thinner than me.
Okay.
And after that, put the chains in my hand and in my belt and my feet, and
change the feet,
chains, and after that go down and take me by force, and one of them take to the officer, go to the guards, go down, and he take me by elevator downstairs, and he put me in a car. When the car say, well, if you cooperate with us, we're going to help you. We're going to help you to get you out.
No.
If you give information about Hamas, the money get to the Muslims groups, Hamas or Al Qaeda or the Palestinians,
which you don't know.
And how is can talk to me about this question?
It's like confusing you with just a big broad brush
the question is trying to intimidate me. And after in the end he said, well, we're going to give you to Israel, to Mossad. Yes, this is
the ultimate threat.
The ultimate. When we go into the Federal Plaza, take me 10th floor, take digital for my hands, my finger, and some. I never see digital for my eyes.
For the iris now they do. Yeah.
And after take me to a small room, 2 chairs like this was the officers, and I am in the front.
Like out of the movie Brazil.
Yes, and the other officers in my back, and beginning to ask me the same question. And when I not answer, and I tell him, don't try to intimidate me. I try to. If you intimidate me, I going to talk to my legal defenders to respect my human rights, try to humiliate me.
Did they rough you up at all?
One of them come in and put his hand like this and hit me, not like this, hit me here. Like
hard.
This, yes, hard, yes. And the chair was this kind of chair, movement chair.
Yeah.
And I coming back, and I come to the floor. And the other one looking for me from down and get me up. And the other one talking with the other officer of the INS, and the 2 officer gone, and one stayed there, and I wait this, and after that I be beat up from the officer.
Beat up?
Yes, beat up. Yes, beat me up in part here or here by his feet and all these things in a professional ways. 15 minutes after my lawyer come in, and
you were able to get to a lawyer.
Yes, the lawyer.
Now, is that he was able to get to a lawyer is particularly unusual to his case in terms of a lot of these other people that picked up? We only got about 5 minutes left, so let's try and get it down to.
A lot of those people detained in the immediate aftermath of 9/11 weren't even given charges.
Right.
They didn't have standing deportation orders.
Right.
Farouk, at least, was lucky enough that he was allowed to, contact a lawyer and all that. But for a lot of people, it was even much worse.
He was put through the system in a way that it was reserved for those people in a way. And we only got a couple minutes, right? So I'm sorry. It's an incredible, interesting story. But you've been circulating around in prisons. He's always had access to legal counsel. You've been involved with him for a while?
Right. Since September, his case has
been.
But
for 2 years, he's been put through the prisons in a way. Right. You're a lawyer. You have a sense of human rights violations, that sort of thing. Were his rights violated? What is the story?
Well, certainly his conditions were terrible, and just to give you two examples.
Yeah, let him talk.
In Passaic, which is a pretty lousy, decrepit, and very old facility in
Some
New Jersey.
Some prisons are worse than others.
Right. The physical conditions were terrible. Farouk led hunger strikes and organized the entire prison, you know, this disparate group of immigrants from all over the world, and got them united to have hunger strikes to protest the conditions. As a result of that, he was moved to a to a holding facility that the INS was renting out in York County, Pennsylvania.
He organized that? He helped organize that?
He was certainly the center of the
whole
whole
Passaic movement. So are they going to come down on him for organizing that? Well,
what they did, they moved him to York, and then in York he was put in York County Prison in Pennsylvania.
Is that a better prison? He was
it's maybe better physically, but it was very far away from his lawyers, and he was put in solitary confinement for 8 months and change.
For having for having done that activity?
I think that's the only real plausible explanation.
No explanation.
We've never heard anything other than that.
Nothing at all. Why he was put in solitary? For how long?
250 days.
250 days in solitary?
8 months plus.
You poor fellow.
23 hours and 50 minutes lockup, just 45 minutes to collect coal and to take a shower and clean the cell. It was a terrible situation and critical. After that, we moved in another jail, Bergen, and I beat up because
beat up who? Somebody?
With the guards.
The guards
beat him up because he had what they called subversive literature in his cell. The militant,
the militant,
the compass, the
progressive, listening to WBAI.
The militants,
North Star,
North Star, Compass.
Oh yes,
you can talk about it. And from this,
his guard said, "This is un-American."
The guard came down on him.
You're a terrorist. You blankety blank Palestinian.
At a personal level, the guard did that, and the guards are able to exert that kind of an attitude toward him because the guard has his prejudice and so forth. At an individual level, there's no protections against that. He was treated badly.
I think so, yes.
Yeah, very badly.
I mean, everyone is not, nobody's treated well.
I understand that, but I was trying to say particularly so.
But I think those are two examples of him being targeted for political activity, both within prison and without prison.
Right, and I wished we had about 15 hours to talk about this in depth. And you and I will talk over coffee, but we're coming to the end, so we only got about a minute left. So let's... welcome to the fact. What is it that got him out? You got out on Monday this week, and you've only just come out of prison. Welcome to the world of the free and the home of the brave. And are you going to be back on the radio? What's your plans? What's going to happen? We only got a minute or so left.
Already have in the radio yesterday and today program. And
your program? You have a program?
No, yesterday we have a program, four programs for different in the radio. And today we have a program, and introduce the question of the right of return. And Monday we have to talk about the situation, what happened in the Middle East, and especially now about this peace solutions.
Yeah, it's just Mr. Sharon and Mr. Bush just announced this thing yesterday, which puts a whole nother context to the whole thing that's going on over there. So you're still speaking out. Well, you're here talking on this television program, and you're still speaking out. And what is his status now? We got just a minute left.
Sure. Well, the Supreme Court said that you can really only hold an alien for 6 months while you're trying to deport them. After that, you have to let them go.
He was held 2 years.
He was held a year and a half after that 6-month period.
And
the only reason he's out now, I think, is because he has such a great support committee among your viewers and the listeners of WBAI. They kept the pressure on. They filled the courtroom. They submitted things to the judge, and that had a great impact on her.
Sorry, we could go on talking for 16 hours. We're out of time. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming in.
Very much.
So good to see you, Farouk. Welcome to the world. And I just remind you, let me get my glasses and so forth.
Thank you for MNN.
Yeah, thank you for MNN and WBAI and the Internet and the communication and the Center for Constitutional Rights. And it's been your pleasure. I have the perception. Let me get it quick here. Shana Kadidal. He's the attorney from the Center for Constitutional Rights. And immediately Farouk Abdel-Muhti. He is just out of prison 2 days now. Welcome to Manhattan and to Manhattan Network and to Conversation. It's good to see you, Farouk.
In your program, you are beautiful, and you, Mrs. Gloria, and the person...
And Mr. Lee.
Mr. Lee.
It's your pleasure. We on Conversations will be coming back again tomorrow. Thank you for viewing. That's it for this particular program.
Thank you.
Welcome to the world of the free. I understand you kissed the ground out at LaGuardia when you came back to New York.
Yes.
You stomped it.
Well, when I kissed the